There's nothing wrong. You want to send your 7-year-old kid to go to school in wherever in the world, that's fine. But here's a tax on foreign education for primary education. You like it enough, you pay that tax. And it becomes a disincentive. What we really need to do is look at the scope of activity. Look at how we incentivize the ones that lead to production. And look, investments will come into appropriate areas to grow those sectors for the benefit of the economy. And that's really what we're dealing with. Supply of foreign exchange can come from trade. We sell crude oil. Can come from foreign investments. Many of the things that we do when we make the wrong policy choices in terms of manipulating an exchange rate is that we may create a disincentive for the other source of supply, which is investment. It's a very significant part of this. And if you want to take an example of India, India was a country that distrusted foreign investments a great deal, most of its history. I still remember 1991, India was down to 3 weeks trading money in its reserves. India was technically bankrupt. Manmohan Singh gets appointed finance minister, reforms begin in India. Today, see how India is cutting foreign investments and see how much investment is coming into India. I hear Nigerian professors of economics saying foreign investors don't bring money, and I'm scandalized. Look, we're dealing with this MTN story right now and blah, blah, blah. Up till a few short years ago, we had invested billions of dollars in trying to get telecommunications to work in Nigeria. Government invested billions of dollars. Only 280-something thousand lines were actually working. And if you consider the fact that offices had most of them, if you people had 2, 3, most of Nigeria had no telephones at all. And if you look at the cost of that to this economy, the inefficiencies that were the result of that, and we say, okay, we open this up for investments. What has happened has been a complete revolution. We need to trust less monies that we spend to get these things done, create incentives for investments to come, stimulate sectors of the economy.
You've talked about where you want, the kind of conversation that, makes sense for you. Where do you think that conversation should be happening? Is it in the government area or is it in the private sector?
Everywhere. One of the biggest challenges I have about our situation is the nature of the public sphere, the marketplace of ideas. People say Nigerians talk a lot, but in many ways we don't talk at all. We don't have intelligent conversation. We have a lot of abusing going on. We have a lot of, who is he against now? Who is he for? And that kind of thing. But just plain intelligent conversation on issues will provide policymakers a better idea of which path to travel. Because there are many paths. By the way, there's no right, wrong, so to say, because you can travel this path and get to the same place. But there are certain disciplines that go with this path as against that path. Now, I'll give you an example. People who are saying, we must not allow our exchange rate to slide because we are not importing anything. There are dirigist traditions that are steeped in state monopoly, the ability of the state to get things done. Even economies that work well, like South Korea, worked at some point with strong elements of state support of activity. I mean, there's this South Korean economist at Oxford, Yu Chang, who wrote the book Bad Samaritans. He provides a strong critique of liberalization theories that really, in the end, do not allow for proper development to take place. But you see, there was a certain discipline that the Koreans brought to their process that we have not shown so far. It's not going to be the gun that will make us show it. It's again how we structure our incentive systems. So it's possible to go that path and get to a destination. It's also possible to look at the values and the character of a people and go another path that will get to the same destination.
One of the criticisms, sorry, Chamberlain, one of the criticisms that has trailed, this government is not being clear on exactly what it intends to do in terms of economic direction and policy. What do you make of that?
It's very important to be clear where you're going and to communicate it very, very stoutly. You see, one of the books I wrote years ago was Why Nations Are Poor. And I offer a framework that is called the Strategy Interface Framework, in which I basically argue that corporate strategy often is strongly aligned to national strategy. That where national strategy is clear and institutions are strong to support it, corporate strategy tends to be one that goes for long-term commitment. Where national strategy is unclear, people go for quick deals. What can I do quick and get out? And you therefore don't give yourself the basis for creating the kind of employment that a youth purge like Nigeria can, as it were, grow on and become a demographic dividend rather than something that we fear. Right now, the investments that need to be made in Nigeria are not being made because corporate strategy makers are not sure where Nigeria is going. They can't make choice unless it is clear to them. So, clear strategy is so important. Communicating that so stoutly is even more important. If you want me to use a small example, almost at a tactical level, to show some of the challenges that we face when this is not so clear. When a few months ago, the dollar scenario began to develop with sales of crude oil going down, and people began to say, oh, we'll defend the Naira. I was at an event, Ms. Makrewani and I were speaking at this event, and I said, look, this is not a huge, big deal. What we need to do very quickly is to say to the world, supply is down. It's down everywhere. See, the exchange rates of Canada has lost 50% to the US dollar, Canadian dollar. You go to Australia, it's a global phenomenon because of these global international shocks, commodity prices taking a tumble and all of that. So ours will probably slide. Let's kind of find some mechanism where we'll allow some movement. However, this is our strategy. This is where we're going as a country. We're sure that this temporary blimp we will overcome as we are growing. These other, on the short-term basis, this is how we're going to be improving tourism. On a longer-term basis, this is how sectors like mining, sectors like agriculture are going to be growing. You get fire teams, people that who know what they're talking about, who have respect around the world, and they just get up and they make a presentation in London, a presentation in New York, a presentation there. People say, okay, yeah, these guys know where they're going. This temporary thing. Investors will even begin to look. Growth projected in Africa, significant. Most of it, a whole quarter, 25% of the growth projected in Africa is going to come from Nigeria, the biggest economy in Africa, and all of that. Hey, we better start taking a position in there. We will have dollars flowing in as investment. Instead, it seems to me that what we did was we panicked and we began to say we will defend this, and the monies that were here began to leave, worsening the deficit that we were experiencing. And then Bismarck said something that was really brilliant. Said, as we speak, the difference between the exchange rate in the market and the purchasing power parity is not more than 6 Naira. Now, if you had a floating managed exchange rate within that band, and you are doing these things that I have suggested, nobody will notice anything serious, and the economy will regain its momentum. But if what we are doing continues, by December, the Naira will crash. It was definitive. And by December, it happened. He was literally a prophet in the way he stated it. I think these things are possible. to anticipate and deal with.
The other aspect of this, because it also has to do with the kind of conversation, the quality of conversation in the public space. The impression we get from states, some of those who have spoken, they are painting a picture of war, as though they're going to collapse if this doesn't happen. And you ask yourself, aren't they supposed to contribute to the center to ensure these things flow?
I mean,